Let's talk more about this. Andreas Craig is assistant professor at the Defence Studies Department at King's College in London. He's also author of the book Socio-Political Order and Security in the Arab World. Mr. Craig, thanks very much for speaking to us. We heard from Trump there talking about a lot of options being on the table. As far as you're concerned, what options does he have?
Hello. I mean, we have to start by probably saying that the United States or the West in general is not a major player in Syria at the moment. So there are a lot of parallels here to the situation in 2013 when the Obama administration was very short of going to war over the first chemical or first proven chemical attack. The difference now is that actually Iran, Russia, and also Turkey are much more involved in Syria than the United States or their allies are, which means then that the military options that are on the table at the moment are very limited. So what really would need to be done in order to change the course and the policy of the Assad regime is a major combat operation, which involves not just airstrikes, but also limited operations, at least on the ground, which is nobody has the political will or the power at the moment in the West to do that. So what is really the only viable option are punitive airstrikes through cruise missiles or air power, as we've seen already multiple times throughout the course of the Syrian civil war. But it's very difficult to say whether this has any, if any, impact on how the Assad regime is going to react. Because for the last couple of years, it has shown that the Assad regime can sustain these kind of limited airstrikes indefinitely, also because it doesn't change the balance of power on the ground, because on the ground, the proxies and surrogates of the Assad regime or the allies of the Assad regime, mostly Iran and Russia, are very deeply embedded. They're very well established and they have a very extensive command and control network. So punitive airstrikes would probably target air bases, they would probably target command and control centers. But even if you destroy them, which would be possible if the United States and other allies, particularly France, would actually go ahead with military airstrikes, it wouldn't have a major impact on the way this war is being conducted.
I mean, you touched on Russia there, who are, some might say at the moment in denial mode. They're saying that the US is refusing to face reality. They also say that if the US does retaliate, they're not going to take this lightly.
Exactly. And so in 2013, Russia was still an outsider when, the West was very short of taking more extensive action. Today, Russia is very deeply involved and they will retaliate. They have supplied the regime with extensive air defense systems, which, if they are destroyed, and they will probably have to be destroyed even more extensively than in most recent strikes, the Russians will not accept. And this is the kind of collusion that nobody wants. And we should also not forget that when Israel struck day before yesterday, there is a relationship between Israel and Russia, and there's some sort of dialogue between Russia and Israel over Syria. There isn't such dialogue at the moment between the United States, the West, and especially European Union countries and Russia. So that bears the risk of a major escalation because Russia would not just accept punitive airstrikes, especially if they're more extensive than what we've seen so far.
I mean, we've had France coming out today and saying, look, if it is proved that the Syrian regime was behind this, they're likely to get involved as well. But given the limited impact that the US is able to do, what can we expect from France?
I mean, France, to be honest, could probably do this on its own. I mean, France has shown in the last decade that they are still able to stage and conduct such operations extensively on their own without the support of allies. But probably what France is trying to do now is trying to get the Americans and the British behind such a policy. The problem, though, generally with Syria is that there is no political will for major escalations. Unfortunately, as it looks, the humanitarian catastrophe of the Syrian people is not high enough on the list of priorities, and nobody's willing to burn their fingers over it, because this is what essentially has to be done. You have to take a lot of risk in order to punish Assad appropriately and possibly escalating tensions with Iran and Russia. Nobody's willing to do this to save Syrian civilians. We're only willing to do this when it concerns our extensive or actual vital national interests. And unfortunately, as horrible as it sounds, it doesn't do so. I mean, even for France, it's a humanitarian outrage, but doesn't concern French interests. So everything we're willing to do is fighting a riskless surrogate war, which obviously will not allow us to have the kind of leverage that is needed to punish the Assad regime.
OK, Andres Krieg speaking to us from the King's College in London. Thank you.